This one is getting trashed by critics and audiences alike. But how bad is it? Let's talk about Joker, Folie, Deux. Hey guys, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews It. Welcome to my movie review for Joker, Folie, Deux. This is getting just trampled all over the place. Usually, if the critics have a pretty low score on something, even the audience is like 50, 60% maybe giving it the benefit of the doubt. The audience score even for this is in the low 30s on Rotten Tomatoes. So that is not great. But look, we're going to talk about it all here in just a second. First, though, let me welcome you back to Dan Reviews It. If you are one of my subscribers already, thank you so much. Love it when you guys return to the channel. But if you're not, please consider subscribing. Click that notification bell. You can always just like this video or comment below too. That stuff helps the channel out tremendously. Okay, so first, before we get into the new one, let me tell you a little bit about my thoughts on the first Joker movie, because I think it does play into this film. And maybe why I think it's slightly better than some of the critics and audience might indicate. So I thought the first movie was good. Actually, I shouldn't even say that. I gave it a B, but I don't actually think it's a good movie. I think technically it's a good movie, but it's got a great Joaquin Phoenix performance. I can't deny that. He won the Oscar for Best Actor for it. It was up for Best Picture. It was nominated for a bunch of things. But it was obviously very, very derivative of some Martin Scorsese stuff, not least of which was Taxi Driver. And he even had Robert De Niro in the movie to really drive that point home that, yes, I'm blatantly kind of ripping off Scorsese here. So I thought while technically it had some good aspects and a fantastic lead performance, it was just very, very derivative. And in retrospect, honestly, I think my B is probably too high. But here's the thing. People just went crazy for that movie. They loved it. A plus, 5 stars, whatever. And so I think as a counterpart, this second movie is a big disappointment for those people, because partially, we're not going to do spoilers here, but I think partially this movie's existence sort of negates some of the things that we saw in that first movie. And again, I won't really go into detail about that, but anyway, we have Joaquin Phoenix obviously reprising his role here as Joker. Zazie Beetz returns as well, and you also have newcomers like Brendan Gleeson, Catherine Keener, and of course, much publicized Lady Gaga as Lee Quinzel, Harley Quinn. And this is essentially a love story between the two. Of course, we know historically in DC Comics that the Joker and Harley Quinn fall in love and blah, blah, blah. We know that. So this is kind of one version of that story. Todd Phillips returns to direct, and this is a jukebox musical. And what that means is there's no new music here. I think there is actually one song that Gaga wrote for the movie, but essentially it is a sort of American songbook kind of thing. They sing things like That's Entertainment and That's Life by Frank Sinatra. And I think it goes up to the 70s, maybe, is the most recent of the tunes. There's a Bee Gees tune in here that I think is from the early to mid 70s. But that is sort of one of the big complaints is the music, and we'll get to that. But how often do you hear this phrase? So this is listed as an American jukebox musical psychological thriller. Not too many of those. Silence of the Lambs didn't have too many toe tappers. So let's, do I talk about the problems first? Because there are many, or the positives. You know what? I'm gonna go positive on it first. Lady Gaga and Joaquin Phoenix are great in this movie. Again, it's another look. Joaquin Phoenix, I don't really particularly like the guy as a person. I think he's a weirdo. I just don't like some of the things he does, but I got to admit, the guy is always captivating to watch on screen. The last movie he did was Napoleon, which was average, but he was, pretty good as that title role. And he's great here again as Joker. Lady Gaga, look, she's proven herself to be a viable actress. She was, astounding in A Star Is Born, one of my favorites of the last decade. But, even in a bad movie like House of Gucci, she did a pretty good job with her acting. Here, look, we're obviously seeing a little bit of the singing portion of Gaga, which she's, of course, most famous for. But we also see a really good acting performance from her as well. And I do think that the two leads have some chemistry. Also, I think that things like the cinematography, are pretty great here. However, that's kind of where the positives end. Well, I guess I will say it's not as derivative. I guess I could say that as well. He doesn't seem to be aping Martin Scorsese too much here, but maybe some other movies, because it turns out that this movie is all about the aftermath of his actions in the first movie. So this ends up being a movie about him being locked up at Arkham Asylum and the subsequent trial. Catherine Keener, like I mentioned, she plays his lawyer. So this turns out to be more of a legal drama, I guess, than anything. So even for Wikipedia to call it a psychological thriller, there's like maybe one action sequence in the whole movie. I would never in a million years call this a thriller or an action movie. Maybe that's what people were hoping for with this. I don't know. Certainly there was more action in the first movie in terms of killing, for example. But this is absolutely not a thriller. It is a legal drama for all intents and purposes, and a musical legal drama. Again, something we don't see a lot of. In To Kill a Mockingbird, Atticus Finch didn't really, give us any toe tappers. But yeah, I mean, this movie, as a result, is kind of all over the place. One of the big criticisms, I think, has been with the music and the choice to make this a musical, and I can't really disagree. While I do think the musical elements add something to the story, they all do kind of fall back on, helping the story, helping his mental state, Arthur's mental state. That's the Joker, Arthur Fleck. It's sort of mirroring what he's going through mentally. So I understand, why, but boy, there's way too much breaking away for the musical numbers in this movie. That is definitely a problem. Look, I love a musical, but there can be too much of it. And I think this movie doesn't know when to quit in that aspect. And look, Lady Gaga, from what I read, was very serious about, hey, let's do this live. Let's sing on the day, not do it to a track. And I think that does help. Look, Lady Gaga has one of the greatest voices out there right now. So I'm not surprised that she wanted that. Joaquin Phoenix's voice, however, while he proved he's got the chops, as he did Johnny Cash and Walk the Line, I think here he was purposely not singing that well because Arthur Fleck wouldn't sing that well. And so he's, really getting into that character. But as a result, every time he opens his mouth to sing, it's not really what you want to spend the next 3 minutes watching. So that is definitely an issue with this movie. And what are some of the other negatives? Well, certainly the idea that I think it negates a little bit of the first movie. And I think if people are loving that first movie so much, it makes sense that sort of pulling the bait and switch on the audience that loved that piece of work are not going to be happy with maybe the results of this. And that could have been a conscious choice. Maybe Todd Phillips wanted to kind of blow up the mythos of that first movie. I'm not sure. But it definitely factored in, for me. But I wasn't in love with that first movie, so it didn't quite affect it as much for me. And I liked a lot of the courtroom stuff. I did. I love a courtroom drama. So for me, that was definitely one of the more compelling elements of this movie. And then you have the stuff at the asylum, a little less compelling, maybe a bit routine for some jailhouse movies. Brendan Gleeson, though, another good performance from him. And I want to say this because I had not seen this guy in a long time. There's a couple other people in here I didn't mention, but I'll let you be surprised by that. But Jacob Laughlin plays Ricky, who is an inmate at Arkham, who kind of aligns himself with Arthur. And I was like, where do I know this guy from? How do I know him? He was one of the little kids. He played Neck in this movie called Mud, which was one of my all-time favorite movies. It's in my top 50. And he was just a kid then. He was probably 14 or 15. And then he was in the Maze Runner movies a little bit. He had like some minor roles in those. But other than that, I hadn't really seen him since Mud. And so I was like, I know this guy. So I was very happy to see him in this movie. He does a really great job. It's a minor role, but I like that a lot too. So look, overall, this is definitely a mixed bag for me. It is a average to negative grade for sure. But I really walked into this expecting to hate it, F, D, something in that range, because the results were so bad from critics and audiences. But I think maybe that could be because the first movie is so beloved by so many people. And this really does kind of desecrate a little bit of what was going on in that first movie. So for me, this is definitely more on the average end, but it is still a negative grade. I leave Joker Folie Adieu with a C minus. I'm not sure what the thought process was with a lot of these decisions, but there you have it. You can certainly go see it for yourself and decide for yourself there. But I don't think we'll be seeing a lot of awards love for this one come Oscar season. All right, thank you so much for watching Dan Reviews It. I'll see you next time.